The Paper World from The Memoirs of an Olive Tree by E.B. Vargas. It's fun to take a flower and press it between the pages of a book. What was once full and growing in the yard becomes flat. But what if you could take a flat flower, so flat that it's only a picture, then blow into it to become a full, beautiful flower? What if you could even blow into a racing car and it would pop right off the page for you to drive? Wow, the possibilities! Well, Ollie the Olive Tree remembers a palace that was born just like that. Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jews. But now my kingdom is from another place." John 18:36, NIV. Theirs is the divine glory. The artist fashioned the figure of a bird in gold. As he finished, he kissed it. Immediately, what was once still rose up on its wings and took flight. It joined other birds, some of gold, some of silver. They all sang and chirped in the branches of a nearby olive tree. The artist laughed along with the birds and then sat down before a drawing table, his box of colored pencils sharp and ready. First, with his black pencil, he outlined a garden much like his own, with trees and flowers and a river. Then he outlined a palace with flags waving off of pointy towers. His concentration intensified as he touched the tip of his green pencil to his tongue. He drew a green figure of a man. But the moment the artist finished drawing the man, Mr. Green started sliding across the page. "Delightful," the artist said. The artist drew Mr. Brown with his brown pencil. In the same way he drew Miss Magenta, Sir Indigo, Baby Blue, and Lady Lavender. All the figures were as lively as the next and could slide across the paper. I say slide because that was the full extent of their movements. They remained flat while they moved from side to side and from top to bottom. The figures had no difficulty crossing over any black lines in the same way you or I have no difficulty crossing the letter T. But if Sir Indigo, who was drawn facing right, wanted to look to the left, he had to rotate his head till his nose pointed straight up so it looked like a party hat. Then he would continue moving it till his nose pointed left. Unfortunately, this caused his eyes to be below his nose when facing left, but Sir Indigo was quite content with the arrangement. It was the same for all the figures. To turn one's head the way we are accustomed would require the nose to poke right off the page, and we all know this is just impossible for a drawn figure on a flat piece of paper. For a while all was going well for the figures on their paper world. But as the artist continued, something disturbing happened. Mr. Brown slid right over to Sir Indigo and then crossed right on top of him like he was a tree. "Hey, watch where you're going," Sir Indigo complained. Mr. Brown looked at himself. His lines, combined with Sir Indigo's lines, now appeared thicker and darker. Mr. Brown liked his new sense of power. He refused to slide off Sir Indigo. Instead, he took control of Miss Magenta. She suffered the same fate. Mr. Brown's lines grew even thicker and muddier. "From now on, they'll call me the Brownster," he boasted. Panic in Paper World broke out. "Slide, slide for your lives," Mr. Green warned. The Brownster slid after Mr. Green. Mr. Green slid all across the paper, but there was no place safe. The Brownster was not giving up. The greenness of Mr. Green began to drain from him. I don't want to succumb to the Brownsters' muddy plan, but I can't save myself." Now the artist saw all that his picture was doing. He gently opened his hand and laid his palm over Mr. Green. Bonk! The Brownster slid right up to it, but could slide no farther. He could not slide under the artist's hand where Mr. Green was hidden. "What's this?" he complained. The Brownster tried again. Bonk! Because he could not see off the paper, he had no idea what the force was into which he kept crashing. He could only tell it was something other than a drawn figure, and clearly something more powerful than he. He slid away for another opportune time to overcome Mr. Green. Now Mr. Green also felt the hand of the artist, but instead of an unpleasant bonk on the nose, he felt the presence of warmth and comfort. "This is not of my strength," he declared. "I need to tell the others before it's too late." He found Lady Lavender and Baby Blue crossed over with the palace, so he shared his experience. Lady Lavender just scoffed. "A sudden force, you say, yet you know not from where it comes. It keeps you safe from Mr. Brown? Nonsense! There's no evidence. I need scientific proof. It doesn't exist." "But the Brownster," Mr. Green pleaded. Lady Lavender stuck her nose up above her head. "Mr. Brown wouldn't dare come near me." And away she slid. Baby Blue's eyes grew wide, and the blue began to drain from him. I need such protection. I'm no match for the Brownster." At that moment the Brownster careened toward the palace. The artist placed his palm over both Mr. Green and Baby Blue, but this time he also breathed into his cupped hand. Pop, pop! They each filled up like two balloons they lifted right off the paper. And pop! With them came the palace. They could look down and see the flat paper they were leaving. But they could also see for the first time the artist and the gold and silver birds flying above an olive tree. They saw even the palace float up and settle down in a nice spot in the garden. "Welcome, Mr. Green and Baby Blue. You are my finished work, my masterpiece. I had wanted all of my drawing to join me here, but Sir Indigo and Miss Magenta have gotten themselves caught up in that paper world, and it seems Mr. Brown and Lady Lavender are still too full of themselves for me to breathe my art into them. It's a shame, because soon the paper will be too yellowed and aged to be of any value. See even now how the corners are curling in. Then it will only be good for the fire." Mr. Green looked upon that hand that had saved him. He knew that hand, he loved that hand, and he trusted that hand. And then he looked full in the artist's face. He knew now that the paper was just a shadow of this place. Now, for the first time, he was truly alive. Still holding on to the artist, Mr. Green joined hands with Baby Blue, so they now formed a circle. And Mr. Green, Baby Blue, and the artist danced throughout the garden to their heart's content. Delightful! Visit memoirsofAnOliveTree.com. Enjoy the entire series, including easy-to-read explanations for children, lesson plans for teacher, parents, crafts, games, songs, and more.